Hello and welcome everybody to Flicker Effect, episode 224. We're recording this on Sunday, August 6th, 2017. I'm David Lotz. Joining me this week is Bobby Jackson.
What's up?
Yasha Wilson.
Hey, everybody.
And Michelle Curry.
Hi, everyone. How are you?
How's it going, guys?
How's it going? I'm good.
In one sense, it's only been a week since we've recorded. In another sense, since we've done a show like this, though, it's been, I think 3 weeks since we have just done a normal show to talk about what we've been watching and talk about news. So I'm going to go ahead and throw it out there right at the beginning here that, lately we've been kind of keeping our show length down to about an hour. And I would probably say that there's a good chance that will not be happening with this episode. This will probably be a little longer because it's been a while since we've had a chance to chat about all these movies. And why rush things, right?
We got a lot. Right. We got a lot to catch up on, quite honestly.
We do. But let's jump right into it.
People get more for their money that they're not paying.
Yeah, exactly. That they're not paying. For their time. Oh, hey, I got a camera in my face.
What's going on over there?
I don't know. There's picture taking happening.
Oh, is this for our Instagram that we've been lighting up lately since Comic-Con?
Yeah, that one. I have a feeling it's like Instagram story time because the phone was not moving at all. So it's probably video. But anyway, let's jump right into it. Let's talk box office numbers. This weekend, number one at the box office was The Dark Tower, which was the new release this weekend. But I should say this was, from what I'm reading, the slowest box office so far for the summer of 2017. So
I can believe that, honestly.
Oh, yeah. It's not too surprising.
I think everybody's trying to get back in the swing of life with schools are starting back up. People's families are getting off vacation. Like the real world is starting to kick back in fact, slowly.
Yeah, I started thinking about that the other day. I was just like, wow, I didn't realize it, but we're in August and the summer movie rush is pretty much coming full circle. Like we're almost out of it.
Yeah.
But what do you...
Oh, go ahead, Bobby.
No, I was just going to ask what you guys think. Like, what do you think that... Like, Michelle mentioned the aspect of everything sort of winding down and getting ready for school and all that. And then you look at the movies that kind of came out this week and you see that not too much of it was well received in terms of the public excitement-wise. So I'm curious, is it just because of the selection of movies, or is it really like if you could have put a Spider-Man at this point in time, would it still have underperformed based on the time of the month and year it is, or is it just the lack of movies and people aren't really excited?
Certain movies like Spider-Man as an example, no, I think it would have done just fine. I think it's a combination of things, and I think because of how busy people are probably getting with like the stuff you pointed out, Michelle, like getting back to school and all that jazz, makes you a little more cautious about, am I really going to get out and go see Dark Tower? But, Spider-Man's out this weekend? Yeah, of course I'm going to go see Spider-Man no matter what. Like, I feel like a movie like Spider-Man would have still held its own just fine.
And yet in the same breath, though, there's a reason they put Spider-Man where they put Spider-Man. There's a reason they didn't hold it to this point.
Sure, like a studio's they're going to put it the best weekend they possibly can.
Right.
But, in hindsight, knowing what Spider-Man was and the quality of film and the word of mouth, a movie like The Hat, or say you put Wonder Woman this weekend,
You still would have crushed it.
I think so.
Like those movies, those big box movies, they would have still crushed and they still would have owned things and would have owned an entire weekend. Whereas in, a movie like The Dark Tower or something that, is a little less known for people wanting to see it and whatnot, that it just performs and it performs slowly, but it still won the box office.
I feel like this would have been a perfect weekend for Apes to come out.
Well,
why is that?
Yeah, because nothing around it, basically.
Well, yeah, and because when Apes did come out, Spider-Man was in its second week, so I feel like they kind of both affected each other in one way or another, and it would have had more time to breathe in August at this point in time with nothing else around it, and people not feeling like there's too much and not getting a chance to see it, because I don't think it did bad, but I felt like it could have done better. It seems like It got buried pretty quickly throughout.
No, I agree, because I mean, with Spider-Man though, it's like that's a special case. Like Wonder Woman is a special case. Like the movies were so good and so entertaining and so um eagerly ready to watch, that a movie like that, when you have a like $120 million weekend or whatever their opening was, like we've talked about this in the past, movies typically fall off like 70 or 50% for the next weekend, but it's still getting a big crowd. So unless you have like a huge movie following it that can like kind of even pull even more people around, it's like, oh well, we didn't see Spider-Man last weekend, so why don't we just go ahead and see this because we really want to see a movie. I think that it would I think putting it on bookending it on Spider-Man, I think that was their mistake as well. I'm with you on that, Bobby. I think they should have moved it a little bit further away, because they were still going to get hit with the people that are trying to go and see Spider-Man. And the fact that people were going to see it more than once, I think that didn't help.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, Dark Tower is number one this weekend with 19.5 million. And I did not get a chance to see this. And to be honest, kind of as the weekend approached and knowing how busy, talking about busy family life and social life, like, I mean, it was a busy weekend for me. So Dark Tower was not a movie I decided in the end. And I'm like, I've got to go see it. I never read these books. And I had made this decision before I had seen any kind of critical response to it. But I just kind of had a gut feeling then. I'm like, this doesn't seem like it's going to be a very good film. So I'm curious to know if you guys saw it. What did you think? Who all saw The Dark Tower?
Well, I saw it. Bobby, did you get a chance to see it?
Yeah, I'll let you go.
Damn you. Okay.
You should know better by now.
Okay. I try really hard to not read headlines and or reviews when I'm getting ready to go see a movie regardless, because I was kind of excited to see this one. I remember reading the first book back in junior high though. So that was a long time ago. I barely remember the story, but I was excited to see it because I know that it had potential to be kind of an epic thing. And, we could see more movies from this. Like it could be like a huge franchise that they were going to. The headline that I happened upon that kind of really bummed me out was the movie is not good. It's not bad. It's kind of just there. And I was really bummed that I read that, because when I watched it, that's kind of how I walked out of it feeling. I was like, wow, that person really nailed it on the head on the coffin. The movie was kind of lackluster. It doesn't surprise me that they didn't have too many trailers for it or really hype behind it. It kind of felt like it was I'm so sorry. Pardon me.
I think you're allergic to this movie.
Right.
Oh my God. I knew once it was starting. I'm so sorry. I was trying really hard to stop, and it wasn't going away. I was like, shit. But I mean, to sum up, the movie basically, the headline hit it directly with exactly how I felt when I walked out of it. It wasn't bad. It wasn't good. It was kind of just there. You don't really need to see it. It was an amazing cast, because everybody that was in it did an amazing job. Matthew, Idris Elba, the little boy, his name escapes me, but he was even a good actor. And you expect like this really amazing film and this kind of like epic storyline that kind of can prepare you for, like, because I think there's like 5 or 6 of these books, maybe more, and you kind of get this resolution at the end. It's like, okay, so is that it? And I mean, at one point I understand why they kind of wrapped it up, and then the other point I was like, they could have made this like a huge movie, like a huge franchise, and I feel like they just kind of stopped. Like it could kind of have the potential to keep going, but at the same time, it just wasn't there. Like, I mean, some very cool fight scenes and kind of action scenes, but it just kind of left a lot of questions, and I really wasn't that impressed with the film. Actually, I was kind of disappointed when I walked out of it. I was like, wow, I really didn't need to get up super early and go and catch this movie. I could have waited and seen this anytime, especially like on HBO or video. So would I recommend to see it? Maybe, because Matthew McConaughey plays a really fun bad guy. Idris Elba was really cool in action scenes. But aside from all of that, it was kind of lackluster and a little anticlimactic and wasn't that great.
All right. Well, Bobby, your thoughts?
Yeah, for me, I never really knew much of the source material other than the fact that it was a thing and that Stephen King did this thing. And so I didn't really have too much going into it other than when I've been able to see the trailers, and the trailers really didn't do too much for me. I wasn't convinced and on board by just seeing that, but I still wanted to see it just because of the nature of it and it being something that I guess in the same way that me being a fan of comic book movies and knowing the source material, that other people who know the source material might want to see it and have their opinion on it. So I was coming in it from the angle of someone who doesn't know much about the source. So when I walked out of it, I honestly felt like I enjoyed the movie. I was really entertained by it. There's definitely some issues with it. Like I think my biggest two issues with it were, although I liked Idris Elba and what he was doing with the role, I just felt like that character of the gunslinger, you don't get much of that characterization of him. He feels very one-dimensional, like just one note almost all the way throughout, except for times when he's sort of played as the fish out of water. But other than that, he's just, you don't really get much from him, so you don't you invest in him too much. And a couple of the other things that sort of nagged at me at about it when I was watching it was a lot of the action scenes were felt like they were filmed in the dark, so you couldn't really see a lot of what was going on, which was unfortunate because there was certain things about it and aspects and a look of it that I kind of wanted to try and get more into the feel for, but you really can't just because there's not a lot of action that was filmed in the light. And the other part of that factor is that the action that we did get, yeah, I mean, it was kind of lackluster. It wasn't anything I haven't seen on film before and done in any way. There's a certain couple aspects that are different and unique to the gunslinger character. That's kind of cool. But aside from that, it's not really the action that drives it and is unique to it in any sort of way. But the story and some of the elements of this mythology, I think, is what was entertaining to me and going along with this kid's story was played by Lucas Hanson, Nicholas Hamilton's character, or I mean, sorry, Lucas was the character, and I was just sort of like into his whole thing as a kid, and I like following his story and seeing where he was going with this whole thing because I didn't really realize until seeing the trailers that this was sort of a duality thing of different worlds and everything that was taking place within these worlds sort of trying to come to an end based on the Man in Black. And I thought the characters in it were fine and the mythology in it is pretty cool. But I just felt like after I walked out of the movie, it felt like maybe a couple hours later, it was just didn't leave any impression on me. So it was really sort of like summer movie fluff. It was good in the moment, and then afterwise, like a little bit later, it just kind of left me feeling empty about it and really not one way or the other. I didn't think it was bad. It just wasn't super great or anything. So I don't know. I think there's probably more potential there. I don't know if that means in a movie sense or if it would be better as a TV series, but I suspect that it probably would be better as a TV series since, like Yasha mentioned, there's like 5 or 6 novels or whatever that it's based off of. So, I mean, if there's somebody who's a diehard fan of this, I would probably gather that they wouldn't be a fan of this just because it's condensed so much and probably not the story they want to see. But for someone that doesn't really know it, I'd say they probably could go check it out and maybe be entertained by it. But just on a sort of a basic level of let me go see something for an hour and some change. And, it's not a long movie, so that's good in a sense of it being the way that it is. If it was a better movie, I guess it would be better if it was longer. But it just doesn't feel like it's anything that I think people would necessarily run to go see, but if they wanted to go see something for a movie, they wouldn't necessarily be disappointed if they don't know the source material.
See, I just looked it up, and The Dark Tower is 8 books. Like it's an 8-book series. And see, that's kind of like, and one of the articles that I read after I saw the movie is like, this isn't just the movie about the Dark Tower. It takes from like all these different books. So to echo what Bobby just said, if you're a fan of this series, you'll probably walk out hating this storyline because they took so many different stories or parts from different books. I don't know which ones they've done because, again, I've only read one of the book, and it was over 20 years ago since I read that book. So I was, still trying to remember exactly what was going on and what not. But I mean, it just kind of seems like it was thrown and mashed together. And Bobby's right, like the character of the gunslinger was one dimensional. I really enjoyed watching Matthew McConaughey be a bad guy, and I wanted to see more of that, but I felt like we didn't understand really his motives as to what he was really trying to do or what he was going after. I mean, they tell you, but at the same time, you're kind of like, well, why? What does he gain from what he's trying to do? But I mean, 8 books is a lot, and they could have, I mean, that's essentially a Harry Potter series. So it's like they could have stretched this out to be an epic story for the next 15 years. But I feel like they just kind of did a one and done type thing, because I can't see this being sequelized and doing another one.
Yeah, I feel like as the weekend has progressed, and I have started coming across reviews, and there have been a couple I haven't read completely, but I've kind of dipped into a little bit. I feel like the common theme I've been hearing is kind of confusion by this movie, and not confusion in like, why did they, I don't know how to put it, but like confusion as in like, almost like, what were they trying to accomplish with this film? And as someone who didn't read these books and is not familiar with it, that as the weekend is kind of ended and I've been reading that stuff, that would now be the only reason I feel like I'd be kind of interested in seeing it. Cause I'm like, what is going on in this movie that's confusing everyone so much? Like, and I don't know if I have a feeling a lot of these opinions are coming from people who are big fans. But I don't know. It's just, it seems like an odd reaction to this one. So. Cool. Well, moving on to the number 2 weekend, or movie of the weekend, that was Dunkirk in its 3rd week in release. Dunkirk pulled in $17.6 million this weekend. It's got a total gross now of 133. So it's doing pretty well for itself. This is, of course, a film by Christopher Nolan. And this is his first film since, I believe, Interstellar, right? I don't think he's done anything since then. And yeah, I think, Yasha, you didn't see this, did you?
I did not. I did not get a chance to go out and see this one. I'm still interested. I've heard some really great things about it, and that I definitely need to see it in the theater, but I haven't gotten a chance to see it.
I did see this. Bobby, I know you saw it. Michelle, you saw this with me.
No, I didn't see it.
Oh, you didn't?
No.
You didn't see,
I was waiting.
You didn't see Dunkirk at all?
No, I've been waiting to hear your review, not necessarily to hear what you thought of the film, but I wanted to hear what you thought of the format of seeing it in 70 millimeter, because my plan was I want to see it in that 70 millimeter, but I was going to the IMAX that we have here, and the IMAX that we have here, unfortunately, it's pretty expensive. It's $21 for a ticket, and it doesn't matter what time of the day you go see it. It's just flat $21. And so I'm like, man, do I really want to spend that, or I can just go see it in a regular format theater and just watch it for the experience, or do I really need to see that 70 millimeter experience? So I was just sort of holding off to see what you thought of the actual experience of it, to see which way I hedge my bets.
I misunderstood you when you asked me that question, and I probably would have responded with, dude, are you crazy? Just drop the $21. Yeah, but I'm also a format snob, and I mean, and knowing the times I've had the chance to see movies that are shot or presented on true IMAX film, and just how amazing it looked to me, like any chance I would get to be able to see a movie that was actually shot on IMAX film and see it presented on IMAX, and again, I'm putting in bold letters film, I would absolutely do it. I mean, I guess I'll jump in then to kind of answer your question first. Like, I saw it in 70 millimeter, but not IMAX 70. And I mean, I'm not going to try to dig too deep into all the different versions you can see this movie in and the various aspect ratios and all that kind of shit. But even though I find it interesting, I know a lot of people may not. But yeah, you know, I saw it in 70 millimeter. Michelle, you saw it with me in the same format, but it wasn't IMAX 70 millimeter. So even though it did look really great on film in 70 millimeter, we were seeing it in like more of an anamorphic widescreen aspect ratio. And I know if anyone were to go see this in IMAX, either be it IMAX with a digital projector or IMAX in 70 millimeter, you're going to get a more true IMAX aspect ratio. And so I know there was a lot of the frame, a lot of part of the frame of the shots that I was not seeing that had been kind of chopped off in the version I had seen. So I will say, even before I give my opinion on the movie, there's no doubt that if I weren't so behind on all the movies I've missed, and I would go see this movie again in IMAX just to see it in that form. That probably won't happen just because of what I just said, just because there's so many other movies I need to see, and I can't justify at this point seeing a movie twice in the theater. But if I could, I would. Even digital IMAX. I mean, of course, I'd prefer to see it in film IMAX, but I don't have that option here in Orlando. I think usually the closest option when this kind of situation comes up is down in Tampa, but that's like a Cinedome kind of setup, and I hate that shit. And so really the closest option I would even consider is like way down in Fort Lauderdale. So no, I'm not about to make that drive.
Lord knows that ain't happening.
But yeah, if I had all the free time in the world, I would even go see this again in regular IMAX just to get that experience, because I know that's how he kind of meant it to be, and that's how he shot it. But with that said, I mean, I saw it in regular 70, and sure, it's still great to see it in film. It's still got a quality to it that looks amazing. The last time I'd seen a movie like this was The Hateful Eight. And it's also it's funny how now odd it is to hear the projector. Like there's points in between trailers when there's silence in the theater, and I'm like, oh my God, I can hear it. Like I miss that sound so much. I haven't heard a projector like that in forever. The theater that I saw Hateful Eight in was much bigger, and even if I could have heard that one, I was probably way farther away from that projector and couldn't hear
Way
it.
back there.
But anyway. No, it was nice to see it in film. But yeah, my suggestion is yes. If you haven't even seen the movie yet and you're still planning on seeing it, like I would kill to have the option that you have to see it in IMAX 70. And unfortunately, I don't have that option. So that's where I stand. So with that said, as for the film Dunkirk, this one's a weird one. I kind of walked away from this with just confusion on how I feel about it. I mean, overall, I will say I like the film. I do think it is a beautiful film, but I think my confusion comes in as I'm trying to make sense on why I stand where I stand with it. And I'm trying to be careful to make sure I'm not forming an opinion on this movie solely in comparison to other war films, or as a movie that just stands on its own, is doing its own thing, and is definitely doing things differently. And, he takes a different perspective on how to tell the story from three perspectives. And I like how he does that. And I won't get into the details of how he does that. Not that it's not really a spoiler, but I don't know. I kind of don't feel like sharing it. Kind of is.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
I mean, just to say it's three perspectives, I don't think is really spoiling anything.
That, yeah.
But I'll leave it at that. But I would say the film feels more like a tone poem than it does like a traditional kind of plot. And it's hard, though, to not watch a movie like this and immediately, for me, and I'm saying this as someone who is not like a war film aficionado. Like, sure, I've seen, I think, my fair share of war films, but I haven't like seen a ton. I'm sure there's a crap ton, Michelle, that you can spit out that I'll be like, never saw that, never saw that, never saw this. But, it's hard not to compare a movie that looks like this to, like, say, Saving Private Ryan, which for me, in my experience, is kind of the epitome of a war film that really did the job of really trying to make you feel like, oh my God, this is probably what it was really like. I'm saying this, of course, as someone who has never been in the military and doesn't have any experience being in war, but it just felt so real. And then to see a movie like this, but this isn't trying to be a Saving Private Ryan, but it's hard not to make that kind of comparison in that I watched Dunkirk and I didn't feel a lot of kind of stress about the situation these people are in, even though, of course, it is very stressful. They're trying to escape this beach. And I don't know, it didn't feel like it accomplished kind of giving me a full, a feeling of what this would have been like. But at the same time, when the movie ended, I don't know, I did enjoy it. I think it's a beautiful movie, and I think I would see it again. Like I said, if I had the chance to see it in a different format, I would take the opportunity to do it. But I don't know. I walked away from it kind of confused and still trying to figure it out, and kind of wishing I could watch it again and probably form a better opinion on it after I saw it twice. But I know that's not going to happen anytime soon. But Michelle, What did you think?
I mean, I'm with you on the whole, like, separate this, judging it as just a film, period, and then separating it and judging it as a war film. And I'm trying to do that in two different ways because, like you hinted at, like I've seen a lot of war films multiple times thanks to my childhood and growing up on lazy Sunday mornings, cable TV, and my father. I've seen, and I hate to, I mean, I feel like I've seen probably 90% of World War II films that have been created in the history of creating World War II films at least twice. And so it's hard for me to sit here and watch a film that is encompassing a very anxiety-ridden and stress-filled week that occurred during the war for the British side, at least. And I don't know, I'm kind of mixed on this film. If I were to sit here and say, as far as a World War II film goes, or a war film goes, it's definitely not up there for me. I feel like, I think what you were trying to hint at, David, was that, like, I feel like even though this was very serious in tone, and you do feel for the plight of these soldiers. Yeah,
absolutely.
My anxiety level should have been higher.
Right.
And I just didn't feel like it built up that anxiety level. I feel like it just was too basic. They were like, oh, we need to get out of Dunkirk, get off of this French, beach. But there was no reasons. There wasn't a lot of pushes to why. Like, there was a huge lack of Nazi drive other than airborne, which was what was happening. And I just feel like it just could have been, I could have been sitting there going, oh my God, you've got to get the fuck off this beach. When are they getting off this beach? Why is this taking so long? Like, I should have been just so anxious for the situation. And I just wasn't. Like, there was just no anxiety about this. And I don't know if that's because they did do the narrative in 3 parts. You don't fully connect with any one character at any point in time because it's going between these 3 narratives. So you don't fully feel for one person deeply in any way that's going to drive you to an anxiety level that they are. And that's my problems with the film.
Yeah, it's almost like, sorry to cut off real quick, but like, it's like they could have done a better job of like just setting the stage for what was happening here.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, they made an attempt to do that, but I agree with you. Yeah, it seems like you don't get a real feeling of like what they're up against and how they really have no choice but to escape this way. Yeah, felt like something missing.
I just feel like you're not getting a glimpse of the Nazi occupation that's happening, that is literally encroaching upon them inch by inch, day by day. And you're not getting that feeling of what's happening to them. And it doesn't create an anxiety level in me to be like, oh my God, they're really fighting for this. Oh my God, they're really trying to, like, I'm not rooting for them. I'm not. And that's, again, like, there's this big disconnect with me and the people that are quote unquote starring in this. And I say that, and there are some pretty big names in here.
Oh, sure.
It's just that it doesn't focus on any one human being at any point in time. It's multiple people and multiple little storylines and snippets.
And I have to say, when it comes to some of the younger soldiers in this, one of whom is, one of those more focused characters. Like, I hate to say, a lot of them look so similar to each other that I'm like, oh my God, these kids all look so alike. Like, and wait, was it that guy or was it this guy? And like, I completely fell victim to that.
No, yeah, I think they're very young and British, and they have that young British look about them. They all are dark-haired, dark-eyed, white-skinned, and they all are very symmetrical in that stance. And I don't know if that was, I mean obviously, this is the British portion of this part of the war, this beach and everything, and I'm wondering how much Chris Nolan like sat there and like the casting for this, they really got it narrowed down to a very specific amount. I'm just like, wow, it is hard to decipher at times. But there's big names in here. You've got Tom Hardy is in here, and what's his name? That's
Kenneth Branagh's
in it.
Cillian Murphy.
Cillian Murphy's in it. Right. And so there are big names in this film, but because it's done in a narrative the way and it's laid out the way that it is, you don't have any kind of a major emotional connection to any of them. They don't build anything. So that's my issues with it. Now, if I look at it from just a film, just a movie aspect of it, it's beautiful. It is shot wonderfully well. The cinematography, the landscaping, the color scheme, everything is done extremely well, and the editing for this film is done really well. And I'm going to say the editing is done really well, and I'm still not sold on how this narrative is told, but the editing is done extremely well. Crazy. Sound, mixing, everything. I mean, like, when there are actually gunshots and there are actually bombs going off, it is jarring. It is almost bone shaking to moments, and which is excellent. Like it's with that, portions are really well done. So I'm kind of with you when it comes to this film. I'm mixed. I can't say that I don't like this film, but I can't say that I love this film, and I can't say that I really enjoyed it. And I'll be honest, like, I don't know if I'm ever gonna watch this film again.
And I get that.
I mean,
but I definitely wouldn't say
that.
Like I disliked it. I think it's a good movie. But I think it does feel like it's missing something. And yeah, but I have a hard time in my head trying to figure out, am I my reaction, is it in comparison to other movies, or is it just my experience? But I don't know. It's tough.
I feel like they didn't spend enough time building the importance for getting off the beach, and they didn't build enough character connection points. There's just not enough there for you to root and to really feel to really want this to occur the way it does. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm saying that, and I will say, of the 3 narratives that it goes through, I will say that the Tom Hardy narrative is probably my favorite section of it.
Mm-hmm. I get that.
I think it ends really well. Like, the way it ends very well. And you're like, Jesus, this is good.
And the movie has an emotional ending that I was watching the ending and having the feelings I was having and thinking, well, now I feel really great about this movie, but I have to remind myself how the rest of the movie was.
Right. I mean, I have to say the last 10 minutes of the film almost completely change everything you thought for the last hour and 30 minutes. And then you're like, oh fuck, this completely changes everything. Like, not changes everything, but it really turns a corner, and you're like, God, it's crazy strong at the end. And you're just like, well shit. Like, yeah. But if I look at the movie as a whole, I will say it's definitely not a great war film. It's a good war film. It's not a great war film. It's definitely not the greatest World War II film by any stretch of the imagination. And it's a good film. It's done well. Chris Nolan definitely deserves a pat on the back. Like, it's done well. It's a very well done film. And that's about all I can give it at this point. Like, I'm not in love with it. And that's where I'm at. That's Dunkirk for me.
I will say too, we've gotten used to the sound of a Hans Zimmer score to a Christopher Nolan movie. They now seem to they pretty much go hand in hand now, and I almost can't imagine anybody else scoring a Christopher Nolan film at this point. But especially in this film, I mean, because the score is such that it is pretty much constant throughout almost every second of the movie. And it is very atmospheric, and I can't imagine anybody else scoring this. And I found myself watching the movie and imagining watching this film with no score and how completely different the experience would be. And it makes me really interested to know how the process of making this film went, in terms of, I mean, every composer and filmmaker is different when the composer kind of gets involved, and when they really start like putting pen to paper and writing stuff for a film. And I, like, for instance, if Nolan had to sit in an editing room with his editor and put this together before he even had score, I can't even imagine what that was like, to even imagine what you were putting together with no music behind what you were seeing. It would have been so weird to me, because the music was absolutely essential to what you were watching. You couldn't not have it there.
Yeah.
So anyway, I had to mention that.
I will say, and these are my final words, and it's really not more or less the film. I'm with you. Like, it felt so good to hear the projection machine behind my head. I miss that sound. There's
Right.
a lot of times I miss the hum. I miss the flicker sound. I miss it. I miss that. And a lot of it's because, I mean, my background, I mean, like when I was in high school, I worked in a movie theater and I used to thread projection machines. I used to help splice film together. Like, I miss that sound, as weird as it is. Like, there's a weird part of me that even misses threading a film, you know, through a projection machine. And it's like, it gives me, when I hear it, it just gives me the warm fuzzies and it just makes me feel like, oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we've gotten to a day and age where that sound is alien and odd now.
It is,
and to hear it, it was odd. Like I said, it was most prominent in between the trailers when it was really silent. Because because we were seeing it 70 millimeter, there was only 2 trailers.
Yeah,
that,
and I
heard
it a few times during the film. The very few.
Yeah, quiet moments.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was like, oh my god, that brings back memories. Just hearing that, seeing so many movies as a kid that obviously didn't have digital projection back then, and
right.
Man, it's nice.
Yeah, I mean, there were times when it was silent and I can hear it, and I'm just like, oh god, I miss that so much. Like it feels good hearing that sound, and I do miss it. And I'm saying this, and I still love digital projection. Don't get me wrong at all. It's just, there's just something about it, about actual film, and I don't know. I feel like I'm gonna be this old person very soon, where people are gonna be like, "What the hell is that old lady talking about?" I'll be like, "Old lady, I'm 38. What are you talking about?" Like I feel like I'm gonna be that person. It's gonna be like, "What the hell are you talking about, youngin'?" Anyways.
So yeah,
that's Dunkirk.
That's Dunkirk. And yeah, I remember hearing about the length of the film beforehand and thinking, man, an hour 45 for first of all a Christopher Nolan movie and a war film that he's making. I'm like, I can't believe he only did an hour 45, but it definitely really only needed to be an hour 45. Nolan knew what he was doing there. If it had been 30 minutes more, it would have been like, okay, dude, this.
If it had been 30 minutes more,
you can't take this kind of feeling for that long. Like it's too much. So. He knew what he was doing there with the length. If anybody is thinking, "Oh my God, hour 45 sounds like it's too short," like I don't think it's going to be good because it should have been longer. And like, no, you're wrong. It's perfect in an hour 45.
Yeah, no, it really is. And I'm glad it doesn't go over 2-hour mark. It doesn't need it.
All right, so number 3 at the box office. I'm ready to hear who saw this one. The Emoji Movie came in at number 3 with 12.35 million. It is almost to its budget of 50 million now in the total gross. It's the second week of release.
I weep for our society.
I mean, who wants to talk first? I mean, I know we all saw this one, right? And silence.
I mean,
we need to get like a cricket chirping button. You press it every now and then.
I must have that one, David. My fault.
Oh, it's cool. It's fine.
You're bad, huh?
No Emoji Movie review. I'm sorry, all the listeners will be so disappointed in us. Moving on to number 4, Girls Trip came in at 4th in its third week in release with 11.4 million, bringing it up to over 85 million total.
I'm not gonna lie.
Can we just acknowledge the money that this movie's making?
Yeah, man.
Like, I mean, when I brought up Box Office Mojo, like I'm sure you're looking at as well, they have the comparison between that and Bridesmaids, and the 17-day total between the two of them. Girls Trip is winning. Has won.
Really?
Has won.
That's surprising.
$85.4 million, whereas in Bridesmaid only did 85.1.
I gotta say,
that blew me away because I'm like, who is seeing this movie? Like, I mean, my cousin saw it and she said it was hilarious, but I'm just like, really? That many people are going to see Girls Trip? Like, and I've heard that it's funny from a couple of people. Well, actually, her and I think her friend was there talking about it as well. But
the 2 people, you've heard it from 2 people.
Yeah, from 2 people, from legitimately 2 people that I've heard. They said it was funny, and I'm just like, really? This was the movie? Because this crushed Bridesmaids, because I thought Bridesmaids was hilarious.
Oh yeah.
Surprised that like this is doing that well, and I feel like this is an untapped market, and Hollywood is definitely going to jump on this and try and make more movies maybe like this, or more movies with women of color or women in general, and really just crush it, because I was floored when I brought up Box Office Mojo and saw that Girls Trip won. between the 7 days.
Right now, Rotten Tomatoes, it's rocking an 87%.
Wow,
it's doing
that's pretty high.
pretty well. I'll read the critics' consensus. Girls Trip is the rare R-rated comedy that pushes boundaries to truly comedic effect and anchors its laughs in compelling characters brought to life by a brilliantly assembled cast.
I mean, I'll be honest. Like, I'm kind of making fun and poking fun at this film, but I want to see this. I want
to see it now.
I
didn't before, but now I do.
I did before. Like, I do want to see this. I mean, now when I put in perspective of all the other films that are out currently, it's definitely towards the bottom of the list. I mean, it definitely beats out Emoji Movie, but I do want to see this. Like, I could definitely see just, some afternoon going to a matinee with a girlfriend and just sitting down and just having some wine and having some chuckles. And it's a fun film. You'd forget about your life for an hour and 40 minutes, I'm sure, and it'd be silly. Just it does. It looks funny. Like,
well, one of us did see it. Bobby, what did you think of Girls Trip?
Well, so like, I guess how you guys are talking about is the same way I kind of came upon it, is that it was basically word of mouth. It had kept building from the first weekend that it came out. And then by the second weekend, I was hearing the reviews from the people who saw it the first weekend, and it was just growing in popularity, sort of underneath the radar. And one of the things is that a lot of times just the underserved market of African-American movies or the African-American audience doesn't always get served. And when something comes out and it looks like it's either going to be good quality or funny or one of the other aspects, then people will go out and support it, that African-American community. And it's bigger than people realize, and it always seems to get underestimated. And so when it popped and it went big and it happened to be good, that's when word sort of spread. So that's where I kind of caught on to it, because initially from seeing the previews for it, it didn't catch me. It was just like, okay, it kind of looks like that other one that came out with Scarlett Johansson that kind of came and went. And so I wasn't really paying too much attention to it. And so I did end up deciding to go see it this past week. And I can be the third person to verify that it is hilarious. I mean, it's pretty funny. It was just like, I think this movie kind of, I think everybody in it was good. Regina Hall, Queen Latifah, Jada Pinkett Smith, and particularly there's this, without spoiling anything, there's this one part with Jada Pinkett Smith and Queen Latifah that I thought was pretty funny, and it was just sort of like, if you blink, you kind of miss it type thing. But they were good in it. But specifically speaking, this movie, I think, lives and dies on the back of Tiffany Haddish, who is the comedian in the movie. She's kind of like, if you were to compare her character in this movie in a sense of her presence, she'd be like Melissa McCarthy is in Bridesmaids. She kind of like steals the whole thing. And so she is just super hilarious and funny throughout the film. And it just brings such a lightheartedness to this movie where it's not trying to be anything other than what it is. And it's a good time at the movie for, like Michelle said, you go in for an hour or two and you come out and you just like had a good time and you were laughing. And it was just on the strength of what it was in terms of the story. And it's very basic, very simple, but it's effective. And they go for the laughs and they get a lot of big laughs. And it's kind of that, I think it's kind of in that position now as to, do they make a sequel and then it loses sort of that shine that it had from the first one because they're trying to duplicate it, or do they just leave it as a standalone and sort of benefit from the light that it brings to these people that were in this movie, and or just like maybe making it as a one-off thing that just enjoy this for what it is and you don't have to worry about us trying to sequelize it to death. So I don't know, but otherwise I just think that if you are looking for a straight up good comedy that you haven't gotten all year or this summer, then this is the perfect antidote for that. It's just flat out funny.
Nice. So yeah, that's Girls Trip. Coming in at number 5 was a new release starring Halle Berry, Kidnap. I take it nobody saw Kidnap. Nope. Yeah, that came in at number 5 with Tim Lange.
I think I saw it before, but I think it was called a different movie when Halle Berry was in it. I don't know, but it just seemed very familiar to me in some way. I was like, didn't she already make a movie about? Yes.
He
So I was
does.
like, I'm gonna skip this one.
I thought the same thing, Bobby. Like I was like, didn't she already do this?
Yeah.
Like verbatim, like not too long ago.
Right.
Yeah, like 2-3 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
it was just
Yeah.
the movie. Like I could just watch that one again.
Yeah.
I don't need to see this.
At number 6 was a movie that we've all already talked about quite a bit, Spider-Man: Homecoming, with 8.8 million. I'm continuing to go down the list because we still have movies on this list we haven't had a chance to talk about yet, and so that's why I'm coming down here to number 7 with Atomic Blonde. And it's in its second week, way down at number 7 at $8.2 million, bringing its total up to $34 million. I think pretty much everyone here except myself has seen this. I have not seen it myself, but Michelle, it looks like you want to say something.
I gotta say, hearing that it's only brought in as much as it has me extremely sad. Like that it's at this. I'm like, really, that's it. That's all it's pulled in so far. Like you're kidding, right? Like, and I say that because I feel like the advertising and the promo for this has been huge. Like. Yeah, I'm surprised that this is all it's gotten. It's shocking to me, quite honestly.
Right. But you saw it.
I did.
What did you think of Atomic Blonde?
I'll be honest. I enjoyed the hell out of it. I really liked it. It was, for me, I think it was a departure from a traditional spy film in the way that. Usually when it's got a female in it, they're the femme fatale, and they can be dangerous and they can be kind of lethal. But I think that with the way this film was done, it was just done in such a way that it made it so realistic that she's not just the femme fatale. She is the heroine. She's the one that is going to go in and save everyone or anyone, male, female, it doesn't matter. And she's not there just as a seductress. She's there to do a job. And I don't know. I really liked Charlize in this. I felt like this was like a coming home for her in a way. I feel like she needed this film to, not that I feel like she was like down and out in Hollywood, but I feel like this was a revival of sorts for her. If that makes any sense. It just felt right. And it was just, visually, I love the hell out of it. Like just being in the Cold War, just the entire feeling of the whole film and the way it was done, and the music. God, the soundtrack is awesome, so good. And yeah, I dug the whole thing. And I gotta say, I feel like the storyline was done really well because while in a way part of you is like, oh, well, it could be this way, and you can kind of in a way predict it. In another way, you don't predict it, but just a few seconds before they do the reveal, like you're like, oh, that's gonna be oh yeah, look at that. Like it's very quick, like it's subtle, and it's just done in such a way, and the story unfolds, and I enjoyed the hell out of it. And Charlize's performance is spectacular, I think. But and I would be completely remiss if I did not literally talk about the all the physical stuff. I mean, the action sequences were really good. The fighting sequences were they were choreographed so spectacularly well. And again, another thing that I love that this director did was that in a fight sequence, it wasn't just a fight sequence to the death, and you would, after a while, like two people would get hit after a while and they would still keep going, and there was no like, I'm a human being and I have to like hold on for 2 seconds to catch my breath. I feel like it was realistic. Like I feel like if this was how it was going to go down, this is how it's supposed to go down. Like after 2 solid minutes of beating the ever living shit out of each other, they would stop. Both of them would take a hit so hard, and they'd, her versus whomever, and they both would have to like regroup themselves before they can even get back up and start redefending themselves or attack the other one, because it was a realistic situation. It seemed like I was like, that's how I think it would actually go down. You'd actually be like, oh, I should have a concussion now. Give me a hot second to regroup my head while I turn around and then start to bash your head in again. You're not just going to keep going after certain hits, after certain, physical brutalities are happening to you. And I feel like it was just done in such a way that it was like, yeah, this is how a fight to the death would probably go down. This is how it would look. But it felt good. And it was just, I don't know, especially the last fight sequence, mother of God, all of them were just so good. But yeah, no, I thoroughly enjoyed this film, and I highly recommend it if anybody likes spy films, any kind of like physical combat kind of I mean, it's good. It's good. It's so good. Liked it a lot. Super down with it.
You're a fan?
I am. I'm a fan.
Yasha, do you see it?
I did see it, and I enjoyed it. I did find it rather slow when we were going from one spot to the next. When it came to what we were all after, what the direction was of the movie, I felt like it kind of dragged in that aspect of it. But everything that Michelle said, like, I can totally see where she's coming from, and I totally understand and appreciate everything that she's talking about, because I felt the same way. Charlize Theron was a beast in this movie. Like, it was awesome to watch her kick so much ass. The fight scenes, amazing, hands down. Just some of the best fight scenes you'll ever see in a movie. The soundtrack, especially with the some of the songs choreographed or synced to some of the fighting that they were doing, it was just so cool. It was so amazing. And you're right, like, this is how a fight would go down if people were beating the hell out of each other and they actually had to take a breath. Like, one of the scenes that I'm reminded of, that I remember, is when they first kind of introduced her. She's in the bathtub, and you show her face, and it's just beaten to a pulp, and you're just kind of like, all right, how did we get here? I enjoyed the movie, and I would recommend to people to see it, but I did find it a little slow. Maybe I was really tired when I was watching it. I'm not sure. I'd like to actually see it again, and I'd actually like to see it in the theater again, because I feel like my perception of the movie might change. But I mean, Charlize was badass. I love the twist at the end. I love James McAvoy. The other woman, what's her name? That was in The Mummy. She's in it. She was really good. It was very gritty. The Cold War story was fun, but I found it a little slow and kind of slow to develop to really get me engaged and wanting to see it or where it was going. But the fight scenes and the action scenes, when they did have them, were top notch. I mean, I love seeing Charlize Theron play this badass, and I honestly hope that we get like maybe another movie with this character, because she killed it. She crushed it. It was awesome to see her in this kind of a role. So I was impressed, but for me, it felt like it was a little kind of like slow developing.
Bobby, what were your thoughts on Atomic Blonde?
I guess I'll be the one out of the three that kind of skews it sort of negatively, because I thought overall the movie was okay. I thought, much like Yasha, the movie was slow moving to me. I mean, I really didn't feel like I started to get into the movie until about an hour into the film, and it's like 2 hours. So that's kind of messed up if you wait for about an hour before you really get into it. And that's really about when the action starts to kick in from what you see in the previews. So once the action scenes start to kick in, the movie comes alive. And that's obviously, as everyone has sort of mentioned, Charlize Theron is awesome in this, and the character that she plays is awesome. It's just that it's surrounded by this story that I just really didn't honestly care that much about. It's the age-old spy story that they lean on, where someone has a list of all the agents and they're going to leak this list. I mean, how many movies have we seen that story being told in? And it's like, I really wish for something different, especially from this being from the director, one of the directors of John Wick, David Leitch. And that it's like, he definitely obviously knows how to film action because he's so good at it. And we see that displayed in full effect in this movie as well. But the difference I had in John Wick compared to Atomic Blonde is that I really got more invested in the story of John Wick. And it was such a different type of jumping off point, because this guy is seeking revenge because people killed his puppy, his dog. You know, it's a different type of take. And this is different in the sense that I guess it takes place in the 80s around the time of the Berlin Wall coming down. So it does have a certain type of aesthetic and look that it's going for. But it felt like it was trying to be overly stylized because as Yasha and Michelle mentioned, there's a lot of music developed into the movie, but sometimes it just kind of it didn't necessarily always feel organic. Sometimes it felt like they put it in there just because they needed to put some more music in there and have it effective to something. So it just kind of didn't always work for me, the music that they were using. The music was good, but it just didn't always seem like it necessarily needed to be there. And I just kind of thought like with that on top of the aspect of it's just sort of taking its time to get to where it needed to be for me to really get going with it. I just didn't really get a full on perspective of this movie of what it was trying to offer and the highlight of it, which being the action scenes and the fight scenes. Because I can't take anything away from that because that stuff was awesome and it was great. And it just, if it had gotten there sooner, if this movie was shaved down to a good hour and a half, it probably would have been a little bit tighter and a little bit more effective to me. But given what it is, it just feels like one of those movies that I'd have a hell of a time watching it on Netflix on my TV, at home, because then I could move past a lot of that story. And I'm saying this upon a second viewing, obviously not from a first viewing perspective because you don't know it at the time. But seeing it again, I would definitely move past that first hour of stuff and just get right into the meat of it once everything starts to kick into gear. So I thought it definitely has potential. I would absolutely see a sequel of it because I think you get past a lot of this stuff that sort of bogged it down to me, and we can get to the real aspects of this character and get more involved in the story that would be crafted in a different sort of way and on top of the action. So I think there's improvement there that can be done to get a good story and good action in this franchise if they decide to do it as a franchise. So we'll see. But overall, yeah, I just kind of thought the movie was sort of a mixed bag and just kind of turned out to be just okay-ish for me.
All right. Mixture of opinions on this. Now what do I do? Well, I'll see it eventually. Moving on to number 8, that was Detroit at 7.2 million with John Boyega.
I want to see that one.
Yeah, I do too.
That looks really good.
It does look really good. War of the Planet of the Apes at number 9 in its 4th week in release, and down at number 10 was Despicable Me 3 in its 6th week in release.
I still need to see Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, but I still haven't seen War yet.
Oh God.
Like I said, I'm way behind.
I haven't seen it. I can't believe.
What? I don't think I really realized that you guys hadn't seen more.
Well, there's this little thing called Comic-Con that popped up a little while ago, kind of.
Well, I realized,
pick up some
but
time.
yeah, look, if you look at the name movies I listed and the movies you listed,
yes, you got a ton of time to watch movies, Bobby. We get it. Jeez.
Well, Michelle tried to throw up an excuse, and that's not really a good excuse.
It eats up some time. It's like a whole day of flying.
Yeah, for us who had to fly all the way across the country, it's a big deal.
It's a thing. And not to mention the fact that there's like a whole day of packing, plus the whole day of flying there, and then the whole day of flying back, and then the whole day of unpacking, getting readjusted to our own time zone. Bobby, you gotta take Comic-Con and add like 5 days.
Okay, Michelle. I'll let it slide, but if you go out of the month of August without having seen it, I don't know how many more excuses I can give you.
Yeah. We'll see.
Yeah, what's the calendar looking like? Actually, I haven't looked at it lately to see what's coming up. I'm trying to bring it up. Yeah, I'm bringing it up right now, but
I think in 2 weeks the Bodyguards. What is the one with Ryan Reynolds?
The Hitman's Bodyguard.
I kind of want to see that.
And Logan Lucky that weekend, which I'm definitely seeing Logan Lucky.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, I shared that with the group a long time ago and was like,
I can't wait to see both of those movies.
It's a Soderbergh film, so I'm
interested, but I'm not like, eagerly dying to see that one, I will say. But I am
Really?
interested. Yeah, it's kind of like I see it. I'm like, okay, it's Soderbergh. Like that makes me want to go see it. And I see who's in it, and I'm like, okay, that looks interesting. But I'm like, it doesn't have me like. There's something about it that doesn't pull me all the way. That's like, yeah, hell yeah, gotta see that. Like I don't know.
Oh, nice.
I mean, nothing against it, obviously. I just, it's just not up there. Which is surprising even for me. I admit.
So go ahead. Tell me you're going to go see The Nut Job 2 the weekend before.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's...
Is that what's coming out this...
yeah, next weekend is Annabelle Creation, The Glass Castle, and The Nut Job 2, Nutty by Nature.
I do want to see Glass Castle, actually.
Why am I blanking on what The Glass Castle is?
It's about a woman who's revisiting her childhood where her parents, because they were fleeing basically tax evasion, drive all over Virginia and West Virginia, and then her childhood growing up poor and then moving all the time. And then she's an adult and she actually is like working on Wall Street and she has money and she's trying to understand the importance and value of life and relationships and is it money or, blah, 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 blah. Brie Larson's in it and Woody Harrelson's in it.
Now I remember when you said Brie Larson and Woody Harrelson. I'm like, oh yeah, that one.
I was waiting for her to say who was in it because I was like, that'll probably
I
make
try.
it register a little bit more than maybe the synopsis.
Naomi Watts is in it.
Yeah, I remember it now.
Okay. I'm trying here. Okay.
I'm sorry.
I'm doing what I can. It's based on a true story. This woman wrote a book about her life. You can see a whole article on it. It was on CBS Sunday Morning last week. Dude, guys, you're killing me
Michelle's
here.
really looking forward to it.
But Brie Larson's in it, so there we go.
Brie Larson's in it. And I got a girl crush on her, so let's do that.
I didn't mean it like that, actually, but
She's an excellent actress.
oh, she is.
She's super cute too.
Actually, a movie that's coming out next weekend in limited release, I really want to see, and who knows when the hell it will get a wider release or if we'll get to see in Orlando. But that's Ingrid Goes West.
I want to see that. Oh my god!
I really want to see that.
So good.
Yeah.
Oh.
Are you gonna be okay?
Dude, no, it's frustrating. It's frustrating because it's like I see it and I see how limited it is, and I'm like, God damn it! And it looks so good, and it's getting really good reviews, and everybody in Hollywood is loving on it, and I'm just like, I want to see this. And it's one of the things I know that we're not going to get for like 2 months, and I'm going to be like, kill me now. Like I just want to see a film that looks good when it comes out.
And then you need to move to California.
Yeah, you need to move to LA.
Or Chicago.
Yeah, big time. Big time.
I'm not whiny at
It does
all.
look funny. I just barely saw the preview for it. I think last week or this week when I watched the movie. I hadn't seen the preview for it before, and I was like, oh, that actually
You realize though
looks pretty funny, and it's got a very diverse cast in it.
No, it totally does. But you realize it's not just like a solid comedy, right? Like it's like a dark comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because there's a couple. There's like three different trailers out.
I really hope it's as dark as it appeared when I watched the trailer, because it looks like it could be a really dark, funny kind of comedy. So.
Okay. Because there's a trailer that makes it look like it's just a straight up comedy, and I'm like, whoa. Because then you watch the other trailer, you're like, oh, this is kind of messed up. Like you realize. So that's why I was like, oh, I don't want. I don't want people going into it thinking it's just a straight up comedy. It's not. There's some seriously twisted stuff happening.
But yeah, it's funny, odd looking at the calendar and be like, oh wow, look, summer's over pretty much.
It kind of is. Like Kingsman doesn't come out to the end of September.
Well, that's the funny thing I was just gonna say next is like, honestly, I hadn't even realized how soon it was. So for me, I'm like, oh fuck, Kingsman is like in a month or over a month, like you said, September 22nd. But I guess I didn't realize it was so soon.
See, I feel like that feels so far away right now.
Well,
like
It does
September.
feel far away to me.
I mean, yeah, but I guess you guys have been thinking about the release. I haven't been thinking about even comprehending when it was coming out for some reason. I don't know. It was just off my radar, I guess. And now,
honestly,
now that I see the release date, I'm like, oh shit, that's coming up fast.
No, I kind of feel like Michelle, because I hadn't been thinking about the release either, even though I was in Comic-Con and Hall H for their panel. I just really hadn't thought about the release. And until you just said that it comes out in September, I, for whatever reason, was thinking it was sooner than that, and it was coming out in August, maybe mid-August or something. Because
Oh, see,
September is so
I guess I
far
always
out of
assumed
the
it was not a summer release. I thought it was later in the year.
See, for some reason in my head, I thought it was going to be a Labor Day weekend release. So an August, September release. And then to see September 22nd, I'm like, oh, Jesus, God, it's at the end of September? Like, for me, I'm like, oh, God, that's forever from now. Anyways.
It should kill, though.
Any good TV happening?
I mean, I've been watching Legion.
Oh, that's right.
I'm making my way through that.
Yeah.
I had to buy it to watch it.
Yeah.
None of your streaming services have it that you can watch it sort of like not. Well, I guess it would be on demand, but like the backlog of it on either Hulu or
Nope, it's not on Hulu.
PlayStation?
It's not on Netflix. It is. I downloaded the FX Now app, and it is not in there. Just like featurettes and stuff are in there. I mean, I didn't scour the earth, but from as far as I could tell, you could not find Legion without buying it. So it was $20 for the digital version in iTunes, and I just was like,
that's not
you know what? It's $20. It looks like it's a good show. Screw
for
it.
a whole season. That's not bad at all.
And it's not disappointing at all, even somewhat. Like, I'm watching it thinking, why did you guys not rave about this more? This is excellent.
Like, well, I'll tell you from my perspective why, and a lot of it has to do with Yasha in a weird sort of way, because I had
just throw Yasha under the bus.
No, not in that sense. Not in that sense. It was just like when we were starting to watch it, or it started to come on. I got to see the first episode, but I got bogged down with a whole bunch of other stuff, and I couldn't just keep up with it week to week. And Yasha would text me sort of on the side and be like, "Man, I'm trying to stick with it," and I kept telling him, from what I hear, it gets really, really good. So just keep sticking with it, because I think you'll be rewarded. And I was just saying that based on what I was hearing sort of out there in the ether of what this show was. And I had liked the first episode, so I really wanted to see the rest, but I just didn't have the time. And Yasha was sort of mentioning week by week, he's like, I'm hanging in there, I'm hanging in. But eventually, I think it finally clicked with him, and then he was just like all the way in and on board with it. But I had always sort of wanted to watch it. And so I couldn't really talk about it on the show because I'd only ever seen the first episode and couldn't go beyond that and mention anything more about it until I think I watched it after the season had already ended, and I just binged all the rest of the episodes.
Yeah, that's really what was happening with me. Is every week I would watch this episode, because it's only like 8 or 9 episodes. I think that's right, isn't it, Bobby? Yeah, it's eight episodes. But after every week, I would watch like 60 to 70% of the show, and I'd be like, I don't know, man, this is weird. And then like that last 20 minutes or that last 30 minutes of the show, I would be like, oh, okay, I'm in. All right, I'm in for at least another week. And like Bobby's not wrong. Like, it took until like the 6th or 7th episode before I was just kind of like, oh, okay. And I'm like totally like hook, line, and sinker. I was sold, and I was like, this is awesome. And the very ending is finally where it got me. And I was just like, yeah, this was a damn good show. I still stand by what I was saying earlier when Bobby and I were talking about. I was like, man, this is weird. This is really weird. This is off the cuff. I don't know what is going on. And one of the things that he said to me in the discussion that we had was like, oh, well, if you watch this, YouTube channel, they do this show and they dissect it and explain it. And I'm like, yeah, but dude, I don't feel like I should have to watch a whole nother program to explain to me about a program that I'm trying to watch. Mm-hmm. Like, I understand underlining tones and understanding, little things here and there where, we all have like little cookies or whatever that we've seen in other shows. And it's like, oh, that's connected to this and that's connected to that. To have to watch a whole nother 15 to 20 minute show where they dissect it and tell me what's going on. Like, who really has the time to do that? Like, I don't. Like, I don't have the time to sit here and watch a whole nother program so it can explain to me why I should like this program that I'm watching. So when I was watching it, I mean, I was sold that those last 10 or 15 minutes of each episode, it finally sold and it connected with me. And I was like, okay, I'm in for at least another week. But then when it finally came down to it, like the seventh episode, and like I finally started to really, everything started to kind of come full circle, and I started to get it, and it stopped being as so abstract and so weird and so off the cuff. I was like, yo, this is actually really entertaining. And the last episode really got me. I was like, this is cool. I dig this.
Well, I mean, I'm only 3 episodes in now. I still have, what is that, 5 left? So, but
Yeah.
I'm digging the 3 I've seen. I'm a fan, and my wife is loving it. She's far ahead of me. She's like, I think she's got like an episode left, and she thinks the show is
Wow.
amazing. I remember she said that she wasn't a big fan of episode 4. She was really confused by that episode in particular. And after she watched it, it wasn't like she was going to stop watching it at that point, but she was not a fan of that. And then, yeah, after that, it kind of got back on track for her, and she's loved it.
With the way that the show ends, I kind of hope that they get a little away from some of that abstract feeling. I don't mind the bold colors and stuff like that, but I hope that they kind of centralize a little bit more on where the characters are going and what they're doing. But I understand what you're saying, what she's saying and whatnot. But I'm hoping that it doesn't jump right back into like, okay, well, people liked it last season, so let's just make it even more over the top for this season, because then I would be really bothered by that.
And you mentioned like after shows, and that reminds me, like I've been bumming out this season that HBO got rid of After the Thrones on for Game of Thrones, and they only did it for 1 season.
It's hilarious you say that. I literally had this thought after watching last episode. I was like, oh, I kind of want to watch After the Thrones. I'm like, well, where the fuck is it?
Can't find it.
Not on the
It's gone. It's my understanding, and I don't know if any of you guys know, correct me if I'm wrong, I think those guys are actually doing a version of that show, though, like on Twitter Live.
I was going to say maybe
like,
YouTube or something?
afterwards still.
Okay.
But HBO did dump it after a season, and it's frustrating because I get that it's, especially seems like over on AMC, like this has now become such a thing with after shows. But if there was ever a show that I felt like really kind of needed it, it's fucking Game of Thrones. Like there's so much going on in that world. There's so much going on in that world in the books that for those of us who didn't read them aren't really privy to. And I'm like, it was perfect for me. You get such a nice reminder about things that happened 4 seasons ago that are like, oh yeah, I totally forgot about that moment. Like, yeah, I don't know.
No, totally. I mean, like, as much as I enjoy Walking Dead, like, I don't really need a recap of Walking Dead that much. Like, I don't need an in-depth conversation. But Game of Thrones, I feel like you could talk about that for 2 hours after the show episode airs, and you'd be like,
it's hilarious.
Like,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
There's so much, and yeah, like I mean, they made it kind of nerdy and they got a little quirky with it, and they kind of do like weird little gamey things kind of sometimes. But overall, like, yeah, they bring up something that happened 5 seasons ago, and you're like, oh, I vaguely remember that random conversation that happened for a whole minute and a half in that one episode in season number 2. That totally connects to what's happening currently. Holy shit. Like it's, and that's what was nice to kind of have those little reminders, and you're like, oh,
I was literally about to touch on that, because their previously on Game of Thrones is absolutely hilarious, because when you first watch it's like previously on Game of Thrones, and then they go back to something that was like 2 seasons ago, and you're just like, wait, when did that happen? Like, and you're like, oh yeah, that's right, that did happen. Like, I mean, like Bronn wasn't even in last season's at all. Like he just, he wasn't there.
Right, like. It's bizarre because he existed for like an episode, and that was it.
Yeah, he just disappeared. Like after Hodor's demise, like he just kind of disappeared. And they're like, previously on Game of Thrones. Like,
Bobby, if they don't know about it now, they're not watching. They're not.
I know, but it's still
like it's like ooh.
Yeah.
But,
my bad. Spoiler alert.
Right. But I mean, yeah, the point is I do kind of miss that after the Thrones. Like I do kind of miss that show. Like I said, like I hadn't really thought about it the first 2 episodes that aired, but after last week's I was like, God, I really could use a good discussion about this. And it was like, I guess I'm not getting that.
It was the same kind of situation for me. I think it was after episode 2. Maybe the next day I kind of randomly thought about it and searched around in HBO Now, and I did the same thing. I kind of searched around for it, and at the time I couldn't remember the name of the show off the top of my head, so I couldn't just do a search. So I'm just kind of digging around through their library going, wouldn't it be like a featured show right now? It should be on the feature tab.
And usually it's in the feature tab, and so
where the hell is it? I'm like, really? It was. They just started it last season. They didn't already dump this, did they? I'm like, oh damn, it's gone. I googled it, and sure enough, they canceled it.
I mean, maybe it was too long. I could see it being a little shorter than it should have been, than it was. But I was kind of bummed. I was like, I could have used a little discussion about this. I'm kind of you know.
Yeah.
And I say this, and there's nothing wrong with it. I enjoy the hell out of this, but then it was like, oh, I guess I'll go to Nerdist. And I say that, and
Yeah,
I
you
love
say that
Nerdist.
like, God, I guess I'm gonna go to Walmart.
Right.
Yeah.
Jeez.
I love Nerdist.
So I guess I'll go here.
Like, I love Nerdist, but like, you know, sometimes they'll focus on one minute aspect for 7 to 8 minutes, and I'm like, no, but there was literally like 3 other things that were quite large. I would actually like to discuss that instead of this one thing that happened for 30 fucking seconds out of the whole episode. Like, call me weird, but I like the rest of the show to be discussed. And that's my one problem is when they do that. They'll focus on one little minuscule thing. I'm like, no. There were like 3 other major, like jaw-dropping shit moments that happened. Right. I want to talk about that.
Right.
And that's my problem with Nerdist. Otherwise, I do love Nerdist overall for a lot, but I feel like that happens a lot. They'll focus on something that I'm like,
You're talking about Nerdist News, I assume.
Nerdist News, or sometimes, what's his name?
Long hair guy?
Yeah, the other one. Dan.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes Dan will do stuff, and so yeah.
On Dan Cave, that's a shtick though. On Dan Cave, it's like this is the theme of this episode, and I get what you're saying, and we're not going to go on a road of critiquing Nerdist for the next 30 minutes, but yeah, Nerdist News seems like the show went from. It was, I felt like, and correct me if I'm wrong, it used to be like a news show. They used to be like, okay, this is what's going on today, this item, and this item. And now it's like each day, it's like, this is the one item that we are going to super nitpick and tear apart. And they don't really cover anything else.
No, I agree. I think that's exactly what happened. I think it used to be, they'd cover a few, like the 4 major topics of the week or of the day, 3 or 4 major topics, and now it's just one thing.
Right.
And it's kind of weird, but
Anyway.
whatever. But no, so yeah, it was disappointing when I couldn't watch my After the Thrones after this last week's episode, because I was like, oh, I kind of would like somebody to dissect this a little bit more and kind of be like, oh, I agree with you, or oh no, I totally don't agree with you, and kind of get that feeling. But that was very sad when I realized that wasn't happening.
Well, Bobby, you been watching anything on TV?
So yeah, I got a chance to watch Handmaid's Tale, and I didn't know much about it other than what you and Michelle had talked about from the story, and about it being this dystopian future where women are basically kind of treated less than human because all they're around for is just reproduction, because there's something going on in society where a lot of women aren't able to have children, and these women that are brought marriages to just reproduce, and they don't have much rights, and it's it's sort of this weird feeling because it takes place in present day, so it has at first you don't really look at it from that perspective, because the way they're dressed and the way they act, it almost looks like you're looking at something from the 1800s or something. But yeah, it's current day, so it has this weird dichotomy of what you're supposed to be feeling and what you think is going on in the show. And you hear this narration by the main character, and you really still realize that this is current world. And obviously through flashbacks they show how things sort of got to the point to where they are. And my whole thing was not knowing much of the source material from the book that it was adapted from. This first season seems like it's covering a lot. So I've gotten up to about 8 episodes, and there's 10 episodes in this first season. And knowing that there's a second season, I'll ask Michelle, is this still pulling from like a second season? Is it still pulling from the book, or is it going beyond the book and now it's kind of living and breathing on its own merits?
So after watching the show, I decided to start reading the book, right? Because I had never read it before. And I will say, while the show is true to a lot of the ideals in the book and the main people that are involved and the way the society has been formulated, it's true to that. But as far as the story goes, yeah, the show's all on its own at this point. Like, it's basically Oh no, it's hard to describe. Like it's basically doing its own. Not I don't want to say it's doing its own thing. It's because it is following the book in a way, but it's not. And I can't really get into it because it gives away too much of the show or it gives away too much of the book. But so it's like yes and no. It does go with the book, but it also doesn't go with the book. If that makes any sense. The second season I think is gonna really surprise the shit out of me. Quite honestly, because at this point I'm kind of like, oh, what the. And I haven't finished the book, I will say. I'm about halfway through the book, so I still have to go through it. But based on what I'm reading right now and thinking about where the book's going to end up at, the second season is going to surprise the hell out of me. Like, I'm like, well, shit. But the basis of what the author was putting down as far as the society as a whole, that's what the show is based on. It's based on the whole, all the ideals, and it does follow the same person, Elizabeth Moss's character. So you are with her in the book too, like that's what's going on. But it differentiates. There's definitely yeah. So, but I say that, and I'm enjoying the book a lot, and I enjoy the hell out of the show. So. You almost can't quite compare as far as the actual main storyline that centrifuges around her character. There's a lot of differentiations, but it's because the show's stretching it out to make another season and do more with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm definitely enjoying the show, and I can see why it got so many nominations. So it's a very, very solid show, and I don't think I've seen anything else from Hulu that I can think of off the top of my head, but this is absolutely something that if you have Hulu, you should be checking out because it's pretty different, and it's sort of I wouldn't say it's leading the way, but it's sort of the start or I guess maybe the second of the stories where if there is a version of history that's true, then we're taking this position of this didn't happen and now this has happened, sort of like that show High Castle. I forget the specific name of it.
The Man on High Castle or the Man in High Castle. Yeah.
There you go.
Man from High Castle.
It's like that in a way, but except for this is more or less not saying this didn't happen. This is like reverting and making history be how it was at a certain point in time. But these other ones are kind of like let's take this point of view and then twist it to say, okay, this didn't happen, and what would current time be like if this specific thing didn't happen? Because I know I'd read about I don't know if you guys had read about it as well, but there was controversy around a new show for HBO coming out that had D.B. Weiss and who was it, Benioff from Game of Thrones that are developing a show called, I think it's called Confederate, where it takes the story of history where obviously the Union won and abolished slavery and all that good stuff, but it takes the standpoint of what if the Confederates had won and we go past that point and what it would be like. And so there'd been a lot of controversy surrounding that show. And then I'd read just this past week where there's another show that's going to be coming out. I forget on what platform, but it takes the standpoint of what if, I forget the specifics of it, but it was sort of like, what if the Union had won, and then I guess the African Americans were giving their 40 acres and a mule, and they owned the states of like Alabama, I think it's Louisiana, and I think Mississippi, and it's sort of different succeeded from the Union, and it's basically a different telling of that sort of history. So it's interesting to see these types of shows cropping up and to see their different takes and how they feel like society would have gone if these things had happened in a different sort of way. And Maid's Tale is slightly on that type of level, and I'm enjoying that sort of what if perspective of if society were to go down this path. And it's always I kind of look at it as like a cautionary tale to just kind of look at and say, we don't want that to happen. So here's the things we have to do to prevent these types of things and not let ourselves fall into that type of slow quagmire of like just dismal and despair and just really kind of letting society fall apart. But I'm enjoying it. I'm looking forward to the second season. I don't know when it starts, but I'm anxious to finish this first season and see when the second one starts.
I'm excited for you to finish this out because the last 2 episodes are so solid. They're so like, drop the mic, holy shit, this is amazing. And as a whole, this series is excellent writing, and the production value is really, really good. And the fact that it's on Hulu is really, I don't know, it's exciting to me that it's so enterprising for Hulu to be putting out this level because, I tried a few episodes of Harlot and I wasn't into it, but like, when I look at what's going on with Handmaid's Tale and what's going on with Casual, and then I see the other stuff that Hulu's putting out, and it's all kind of so-so, and it's not that spectacular. But for me, like these 2 shows on Hulu, I'm like, you guys, if you could do this every time, you guys would be killing it hard all the time. I feel like I feel like they are pushing at Netflix, and they're kind of nipping at Netflix's heels. But if they put production values out if they did all their shows at this level of Handmaid's Tale and Casual, they wouldn't be nipping at Netflix's heels. They would be head to head, like easily, in my opinion.
Anybody watch anything else before we move on?
What's funny is, so the show that I really wanted to see that I think Yasha got a jump on me, but I think I finished way before him, is Friends from College. And because I was so jealous because he's like, oh, I'm watching it. I'm like, damn it, I want to see this. It looks so good. And I kind of knocked it out in like 2 days. I knocked it out pretty fast. But I know Yasha just finished it up, so I'm actually really curious to see what Yasha thinks about Friends from College. And I got my own
Nope, since you finished it before me, you can go ahead and let me hear what you said before me.
Okay.
That's not going to work.
Damn it. Oh, I tried so hard. Oh. Foiled again. So, yeah, Friends from College, group of friends. They went to college. They were friends. They leave, life goes on, blah, 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 blah. And they all started kind of reconnecting again. And they're all about the age of, they're all in their late 30s. And, yeah, so basically the story picks up with them, late 30s, turning 40 kind of situation. So I feel like for me, I feel like the rug kind of got pulled out from underneath me. I went into the show thinking it was going to be like a solid comedy show from Netflix. And what you get is more of a dramedy. And even then, it's not even the comedy and the humor that was in the show was not good. Like I don't know, maybe I had it built up in my head that it was stronger comedy, but I feel like a lot of it was very flat. And I don't know, I think it might just be one of those things where this is how they promoted it, but then when it actually came to the show, it's a completely different show. And in my head, I was just already set in one way. And when I saw it, I was like, this is just not what I wanted. Now I'm saying all of this, and I'm not going to get like into spoilers or anything, but a lot of what I'm feeling and then what I read with the critics are all upset because I guess, maybe not critics, I would say the overall general public consensus is the reason they're not enjoying it is because there's an affair that's going on with a few of the characters, and some of them are all sleeping with each other, and it's all kind of a big convoluted mess. And I guess that upsets a lot of the general public. And for me, I'm like, no, I don't really care about that. It's really more or less like, this is how I thought this was going to be, and this is how this show was promoted, and this is a completely different way of what's actually happening. And for me, that just kind of set me up for failure. And I don't think the writing is very strong. The jokes are just not that funny. And even the drama portions are kind of like, why do I give a shit? So it just doesn't do it for me. The show really fell flat, which really sucks because I was really looking forward to it because it's got a lot of people that I really enjoy, actors and actresses that I think are quite hilarious as a whole. But yeah, I think the show's it's not good. I was not impressed in any way, shape, or form by it, and I hope Netflix does not continue on with the series.
Oh wow! Talk about scathing. Like, that was harsh. How do I follow that?
See,
wow.
You should have gone first.
I really should have. I can see where she's coming, where you're coming from with this, Michelle. I haven't read any reviews from people or critics online. I think to be upset about the affair that's happening with some of the characters is kind of ridiculous.
I agree. It's such a minimal...
I actually wanted. It's a show. Like, I mean,
right.
Who knows? Like, I feel like at times that this might be something that could happen with, people that know each other or whatever.
Oh, it's definitely not something that could happen. This is totally what happens. This is the real world. This is what we live in.
It's. I thought it had a sense of. You're right. It wasn't marketed well because they really have all these comedic powerhouses in this movie: Keegan Michael Key, Fred Savage, Nat Faxon. Kobe Smulders,
yeah,
Billy Eichner, who I love, and I feel like his character was totally underused in this show. I wanted more, and I wanted more of him, his reaction, and how he was dealing with being kind of like an outsider to this group that has known each other. It's like being around people that have all these inside jokes, and you're just trying to like, oh, is that what we're laughing at now? And I feel like they could have played that a little bit more, and they did a good job of making him seem like the outsider because he really was, and that I enjoyed, but I wanted more. I wanted a little bit more of a backstory with some of these characters because I feel like they just kind of tried to throw us in and we had no idea what was going on with, like case in point, this affair that had these two of the characters had with each other. Then they started to allude and hint to some other romantic interests in the show. So overall, I actually kind of enjoyed it, aside from Michelle. But I do see that there are problems with it, and there were things that were done wrong. Case in point, like she said, the marketing for it was very much like this is going to be this amazing comedy, and it just wasn't. It was more of a dramedy. While some of the humor that I did see and that I did get a chance to watch, I enjoyed, and that was part of the show, and I thought some of it was funny. But it wasn't as laugh out loud funny as I thought it was going to be. I wanted to see more of who these characters were, and they don't really kind of give you any type of backstory for these characters, which is kind of a bummer. And we're supposed to be attached to them. Right. What they did do is get us attached to a character. What they did do is get us attached to some of these characters or what's going on with these characters, and then just basically stop the show. And I hate that, and I understand that they're trying to get it so that people should watch it, next season. But if this show is getting really bad reviews, and the consensus is from what Michelle kind of reviewed, and it's just going to be bad and get tanked, we're not going to see anything when it comes to like what happens with these characters, and that kind of bums me out when it comes to some Netflix shows that I've watched in the past. Whereas you just really have to hope that they continue the story. Because if they don't, you're stuck with like, oh, this amazing cliffhanger for all these characters, and you have no idea what's going on or what happens with them.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. And I have to say, I haven't seen a lot of what critics have said, but I've seen a lot of just general public, and general public is not amazed by the show, and I agree. And so I have no idea what Netflix is going to do. I should look into what the critics are going to say, what they are saying about the show. I just don't feel like the writing is very strong, and I feel like the storyline itself falls flat a lot of the time. And I think, for me, the two of the strongest episodes was the one with the vineyard and the very last episode, and the rest of the show was just kind of a wash. And I was like, for a whole season, which was what was that, 10 episodes we watched?
8 episodes, 30 minutes.
So out of 8 episodes, 2 of them were decent. I mean, that's not good for me.
No, and actually, I would say maybe a couple of more that I really enjoyed, but I'd have to go back and maybe start it again, and I'm not going to do that. It's
No,
like,
no.
but I felt like there just wasn't enough history as to like with some of these characters, and this isn't going to get into anything like a spoiler factor, but Keegan's character and Colby Smolder's character come and they live with their friend in the city, who's clearly kind of like a struggling actress or whatever, and it kind of like, well, there are other people that are much more well off than she is, so it's kind of like, why would they favor to live with her, like little things like that, where it's like,
Right.
how does she have the space to kind of have these people live with her, opposed to like some of the other people who Nat Faxon's character, who apparently is independently wealthy, but we don't know anything about that. They just use the one liner to throw it in there to show what he does and what kind of character he is. But he's supposed to be independently wealthy, and he's just this, guy. And it's like, you can get into a whole bunch of other semantics about the show and why they didn't do it and whatnot. But I just feel like if everybody's so close in this thing, I feel like they had other opportunities to live with other people that
Right.
may or may not be better off than doing that. And it's just like, you can find a bunch of holes in the show, and the writing isn't the greatest. It has moments where it's kind of fun and funny, but I was definitely expecting it to be much more of a laugh out loud comedy series,
Right.
especially with the comedic talent that they had drawn up in this film, because I'm familiar with just about everybody that's in this show's work, and have been a huge admirer and fan for the better part of all the way Fred Savage when I was a kid. So over 20 years,
Right.
it's like, I've watched How I Met Your Mother. I watched the Key and Peele show. I follow Billy Eichner on social media. That guy cracks me up. So I do understand where you're coming from. I don't think I didn't not like it as much as you did, but I do see some of the problems with it. And I'm just like, it's just okay type of thing. It was entertaining, but it wasn't what you were expecting.
Yeah, for the talent they have, the production value should be much better.
Absolutely. Well, the talent they have, the laughs should be, I feel like, so much more as well.
Yeah.
Anybody got anything else before we move on? Watching?
Does anybody else watch Ballers? Because that started up, and I've been watching that.
I watched part of the first season. I never continued past that. It's one of those shows I kind of wanted to keep up with, but it unfortunately dropped off for me. Not for any particular reason. Just I didn't keep up.
Well,
with
I think HBO does a really good job with this show in kind of creating this world a sense of realism when it comes to maybe the NFL world and people that work with these millionaire kids basically, and trying to control all these personalities and navigate to for them to make the best decisions in their world, and them not doing it and having to clean it up, and ex-players being a part of still trying to be able to make a salary, and their health issues and whatnot. They do a really good job of kind of optimizing The Rock and James Cordry's character, as you just want them to get a win and kind of keep winning, because they have that sense of like Silicon Valley, where they take a step forward in the right direction and everything is good and it seems like the things are going good. Oh, but wait, they owe this guy $5-10 million, and they're kind of two steps back behind where they were. And
Right.
it's kind of that show where you're just constantly watching, is like, are they going to get a win this season or this episode? Are things going to go in their way? What's going to happen? And it's just entertaining to a sense, because some of it is really funny. Rob Corddry is definitely one of the best parts of the show. I think he's absolutely hilarious. His reaction and what he does and deals with some of the characters. Denzel Washington's son is in it, who's really good as well. I hate to just refer to him as that, because I think he holds his own as an actor. I can't remember his name, but he does a really good job. And I enjoy the show. I watch it, and it's fun. It's entertaining. Here's a fun little tidbit. I have a friend of mine who was an extra on the show, so he's going to pop up sooner or later. So I'm watching to see if he shows up this season. But it's entertaining. I find it's a quick 30-minute easy watch, and you just kind of move on.
Yes. Yeah, like I said, I really only watched Legion, and I'm not even through that yet. And I've been living in kind of audiobook land. knocking out a couple audiobooks lately. That's really it for me. I finished Star Wars Battlefront 2 Inferno Squad. I think it was this past week or the week before. And Bobby, I think you listened to it too. I'll say real quick since we're running out of time, but it was good. A little background. I mean, Battlefront 2, the game, is coming out this November. And this is a canon novel that kind of is a prequel to that and tells the tale of this elite, group in the Empire called Inferno Squad. And I mean, if you were to go, hey, I don't really read Star Wars books, this is something I should check out, I'd be like, you'd probably be all right. There's nothing incredibly special about this novel, but as a Star Wars fan and someone who's interested in all this, sure, I was entertained by it, but I wouldn't say it was exceptional by any stretch of the imagination. But what'd you think of it, Bobby?
I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun, just in the sense that it's another one of these stories that if you've been reading or keeping up with any of the canon of the Star Wars novels, that shows you a different perspective of the Empire. And it's an interesting thing because you definitely get a lot more of a sense of the Empire from these novels and these characters within the novels. Some of them are not really aware of the larger picture of what's going on behind the Empire. They see it as a force for change that's good, that they're doing the things that is best for the galaxy and are mostly on the up and up. They don't really see the machinations behind everything and know really the darkness and the true reasoning behind what the Empire is doing. So they really see it as this sort of benevolent sort of leadership, and they think of the rebels as essentially as terrorists that are trying to disrupt this government. And so it's always interesting to see that being played out and see and hear and feel for these characters that are, for what we know, are on the wrong side, but they don't see it that way. And you get a lot of that in this as well. And it's an interesting dive into that world of this elite squad that goes undercover to try and infiltrate a band of followers to what Saw Gerrera believed and his extreme views. So they're not necessarily going against the rebels per se in this, but just against that extremist group of rebels that were under Saw Gerrera's guide that didn't like the Empire. So it's very layered in the way that these characters are on the Empire side, but you still get invested in these characters and what they're going for, because they do a good job of telling that story. And as David said, it leads as a prequel to the game, which makes me more interested in the game and what that story mode must consist of after reading or listening to the audiobook of this. And I always wonder, because there's definitely crossover that happens because of this stuff is canon. But one thing that definitely doesn't seem to cross over is that feeling that in these novels, you, like I said, you sort of get a sense of what it's like to be on the Empire side, and it's not as black and white. It's kind of grayish. But in the movies, it's straight up like the Empire is evil. There's everybody who's there is evil. Like, you don't get that sense that anyone there is unaware of what's going on. They just all seem bad. So it's kind of interesting that they still kind of keep that line divided and separated from the books into the movies. That there's very black and white in the movies, and in the novels they give it a more of a gray area.
Right. And yeah, I don't know about you. After I read the book, I went and I watched the 2 Battlefront trailers again online.
Yeah.
And it's funny. Like, I watched the first trailer, which you see more footage of the characters in Inferno Squad in. And there's a moment in the trailer I'm like, wait, that doesn't really work with what I just read. Like, I don't know if you caught that. But I'm like, is that going to get fixed in the game by the time the game comes out? Anyway,
right, yeah.
I don't know. Just nitpicky shit that I'm like, it all seems like Lucasfilm and everybody has everything's on a nice tent. And I'm like, oh, do they though? Sometimes I see little things that stick out like a sore thumb. And I'm like, oh, that doesn't work. Anyway, I know I'm being vague because I'm not really explaining it. But And then yeah, right now I'm listening to Ready Player One, which yeah, I'll keep my thoughts to myself, I guess, till I finish that one.
Oh
I
no!
got a ways to go.
Oh wow, a tease.
A tease.
Oh,
I'm on chapter 10 of that one. It's a 40 chapter book, so
Oh, you got a ways.
I've got a ways.
It's, I mean, and like I said, the one thing I would say and keep in mind with Ready Player One is it's a young adult, and the book has got some issues, and it's slow at times, and it's got a lot of things. There's a lot of detail to it, but as a whole, I enjoyed the story. It's a fun story. That's kind of what I kept in mind.
I'm not hinting either way. I feel like you're already coming to its defense. Like I'm going to attack it.
I'm just saying, like I think sometimes people, like, I recommend books sometimes, and I'm like, just keep in mind, like, it's a young adult book. Like, the writing is a certain level, and I think, and I mean, I have issues with the speed of it. There were times that I would be like, okay, like it would beat things a certain dead horse, and you're like, okay. But as a whole, like, I still find it enjoyable, and it still brings up nostalgic memories of the days of old. It makes me all warm and fuzzy inside.
Well, I'm not coming on either side yet.
But Will Wheaton, huh? How about that?
Yeah, Will Wheaton does the narration in the book, and he's good. I mean, I've only listened to a handful now of audiobooks. It's still new to me. And actually, I guess this is really the first one that's not a Star Wars book. So far, all I've heard are Star Wars books. Star Wars books come with a lot of sound design and music, and
that's
and I don't think that's a bad thing. I like it. But I'm
saying most audiobooks don't.
Oh no, I know that. But yeah, no, Will Wheaton's he's good. I like it. I'll say no more until I'm done. Anyway, before we go, one last thing. We'll revisit a segment we haven't had a chance to do in a while, and that's our I Challenge You segment. Oh, you remember.
I remember because it's yours.
Last time we had this, Bobby challenged me to watch a film that I had always intended to watch. I intended to see back when it was released in theaters because it definitely piqued my interest. And I was hearing a lot of good buzz about, and it's just one of those that passed by and I didn't get a chance, and that was The Host. And we're not talking about The Host as in the one written by the same woman who wrote Twilight. We're talking about The Host from 2006, a Korean film from director, was it Bong Joon-ho, who also did, he did Snowpiercer, right? And he did Okja, which we just talked about from Netflix.
That's two films you highly enjoy.
I do. I enjoy them quite a bit. So yeah, I watched The Host, and I don't know what to think of The Host, actually. The Host is weird in that as I was watching it early in the film, and part of me was like, is there like a cultural kind of lost in translation thing going on right now for me? There's these moments in the movie where it's obviously, as I now finished the movie and saw the whole thing, I realized that this movie definitely has comedy in it. But there's moments early in the movie where I'm like, should I be laughing at this? Because this seems like a moment I should not be laughing at, but it's funny, but I don't know if it's supposed to be funny. and I'm really confused by this. I was really confused because I was sitting here in my living room going, I don't know if this is supposed to be a funny moment, but it is. Like, I can't tell if what they're going for here. But then as the movie progressed, there was definitely more and more humor that I was like, okay, I think that was on purpose. But if it was, it's odd, like, considering like everything I'd seen up to that point, and this was definitely a serious moment of people mourning over someone, and then they're like kind of all tripping over each other, and you're like, what the fuck is happening right now? Anyway, overall, the movie is a good movie. I mean, a little background: this is a movie about a monster. Actually, I'll read the IMDb description real quick. A monster emerges from Seoul's Han River and focuses its attention on attacking people. One victim's loving family does what it can to rescue her from its clutches. So yeah, this girl is captured or taken by this monster, and her family is basically spending the movie trying to get her because they believe that she's alive. and a lot of people think that they are crazy to think that she's alive. And overall, I would say it's an entertaining movie, but I don't know. Maybe I had my expectations a little too high, and maybe some of that aspect of being kind of confused by the humor in it at first like threw me off. But I thought it was good, but I don't think it was as good as I expected it to be. That's kind of where I stand with the host. What did you think of the movie, Bobby?
I enjoyed it, but I saw it at a time too when it was brand new still, and it was I didn't see it in theaters, but it was I saw it as soon as it was available to be seen by American audiences, and so I really didn't know much of his work at that time, and that was being the first thing that I saw. I think I just took it as it was presented itself, and it just was something sort of different, and it kind of felt like it had that sort of I think it had that kind of feel to it that a Godzilla movie in a sense has, where it's a social commentary on the dangers of real world issues in a sense.
Right.
Where with Godzilla you have that whole idea of dumping radioactivity stuff in the water, and this has some of those aspects as well. And it was just different at the time that when I watched it. So I guess I didn't go into it with any level of expectations other than I'd heard something about this movie and that it was kind of in its own sort of element. And I really enjoyed it for that aspect of it. And I remember seeing, it's maybe been at least 2-3 years now, that there was a trailer online for The Host 2, and nothing ever came of it, but it looked good, because you see this scene where there's a bus of kids on the freeway or something, and then all of a sudden you see this monster thing coming out. I think it either came out of the water or it was on the freeway, and it starts attacking vehicles, and the people from the bus can see it as it's starting to approach them, and it set the mood so good, and it just looked like it was going to be so interesting and a nice follow-up, but nothing ever came of it. So I'm still kind of curious as to if they're ever going to do a sequel to it.
Well, so yeah, that's where I stand with the hosts. I guess that means I had to get to challenge somebody to watch something, and I'm going to admit, as of this moment, I'm kind of torn three ways with three different movies, two different people. What to challenge? really unsure. I've got one TV show I kind of want to challenge somebody to watch, and I got two different movies I want to challenge two different people to watch. And
why don't you go to the bowl?
Should I get the bowl?
I don't know.
I'll get the bowl. Hold up.
No, because that's the thing. I don't know if I don't know if I want to trust the bowl on this one. I think I'm going to choose for myself. And I don't mean to purposely just kind of go around the table here, because we've all kind of taken a turn, but that's kind of, I guess, where it's going. But Michelle, what's that look for?
I just had one.
You didn't?
Oh my God, Michelle, that was like 3 people ago.
You were the first person that had one. What do you mean you just had one?
Okay.
So, Michelle, yeah, I'm going to challenge you to watch something. But if you're not, I don't believe I'm challenging you to watch something that you do not want to see. I'll definitely be curious to know what you think, because even though I am a big fan of this movie, I will admit that it's definitely has people that are not fans of this, people I know, and that is Oblivion.
Oh. Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise movie?
Tom Cruise movie.
You know, I wanted to see that film.
Yeah, no, I had a feeling you did.
And I just didn't for whatever. Okay.
Now, I was flipping through my movie library, I think sometime this week, and that crossed my mind when I saw it, that I'm like, oh yeah, Michelle still hasn't seen Oblivion. And again, I'm a big fan of Oblivion. It was the next movie for the same director who did Tron Legacy. Was it Krasinski, I believe his name is. And it definitely has that aesthetic to it. You can see the same kind of influence that he had on Tron in this, and especially with the score, even though Daft Punk didn't do the score to this, but they worked with the same composer
right.
on this film, and so the score does have a similar vibe. But I dig Oblivion quite a bit.
You know, and I think I remember when this came out, I think a lot of the issues why it didn't do spectacularly well is because it came out around the exact same time, and futuristic, quote unquote, maybe kind of outer spacey film with Will Smith and his son came out almost around the exact same time. And I think that film had put such a bad taste in so many people's mouths in the general public,
Right.
that when Oblivion came out, people were like, no, dude, I just watched a horrific movie with Will Smith and this one. I'm good. I don't need to see anything else that takes place in the future.
Yeah.
I'm good. And so I think that's why that film, and again, without seeing it, I feel like that had a lot to do with why the film didn't do as well as it probably should have done, quite honestly. But all right, no,
Yeah.
I'll take it. I'll take your challenge.
Sorry, don't worry, I'm not making you watch Pac Rim yet.
Oh God.
That day will come.
I know one day that's gonna come. Oh God, and the wrath, whoever calls me out on that is gonna be so hard.
What movie?
Pacific
So
Rim.
hard.
Oh,
The wrath. The
yeah,
wrath.
that's gonna be rough to get through. That's gonna be a rough one. I'm
It's
not
gonna be a
lie.
rough one. Whoever assigns that one to me, let me tell you.
Talk to
This
you
is
for a
going to
week.
take an ugly turn because sooner or later somebody's going to make this suggestion to people to watch this movie, and then it's just going to be everybody getting back at each other. It's like, oh yeah, well I dare you to watch this garbage, and you're just like, oh no.
Yep. No, it'll happen. That's probably gonna be the tipping point. Is that it's gonna be when somebody challenges me to Pacific Rim. That will be the tipping point. Because after I finally watch that ugly horrificness that is, I will then probably turn on the coin and be like,
So
all
I
right,
gotta ask, do you
boom.
just say things like that just to
I do,
like?
just to annoy
You
you.
haven't even seen the fucking movie.
No, I was thinking the same thing.
Like,
I was like,
Jesus.
she might even like it. She doesn't
I
even know.
literally
that.
do it just to annoy you.
Nah, it's garbage.
That's
You're
cool.
not missing anything.
It makes a lot of sense to
Yeah.
piss off people. Okay.
Yeah, she just keeps going.
Like Bobby sent that article about the teaser or whatever with Pacific Rim being from Comic-Con. I didn't even bother. Like I was just like, no, fuck
Wait,
that movie.
Bobby sent an article? I just ignored it.
But you do that with most articles at then, so it's really
I
no
don't. I
think that's true.
appreciation on
I
that.
don't do that with most articles. I probably read about 80% of what you guys send. I just never comment back.
So,
Thanks, Michelle.
Oblivion, Michelle.
Okay, I got that. I can do that.
Joy.
We'll
Like
see.
not to be like kind of like weird. This is like a real throwback to like what we were talking about earlier. But this is touching back on the Dark Tower. I was just flipping through comingsoon.com, comingsoon.net, excuse me, and they have an article that says 12 movies to watch before you see the Dark Tower. It's like, who has time to watch 12 movies so you
The
can
fuck?
understand this one movie that you're going to watch? Like, give me a break. Like, I find that ridiculous.
If they were like, watch these 2 films before Dark Tower to help give you, I'd be like, 2 films. I
Done.
could probably
That's
figure
the thing
that
you can
out.
do.
I could probably do that. It's reasonable. 12.
Yeah, that's a reasonable do. That's like a
College
reasonable
students.
thing. Like,
College students have time to do that. That's what happens.
12 movies though, and I've seen some of these movies, and they are long, and they go back all the way to the good, the bad, and the ugly, and I'm
Oh
just
my
like,
God. Wow.
it's like, wow, really?
It's a long one.
Yeah.
What a fun-filled week we've had.
Yeah, with that, I think it's time to wrap things up. Time to move on. And as always, we'd love to hear back from everyone listening. You can email us at feedback@flickereffect.com. You can find us on our various social media accounts. If you're wondering where to find us there, just go to our website, look on the right-hand side. There's links, all that good stuff. I'm David Lott.
I'm Bobby Jackson.
I'm Yasha Wilson.
Not Michelle Curry.
Thanks for listening.